Hello and welcome to Shuffling Notes, a channel where we discuss music and a lot of music. And I am your co-host Razi.
I'm your co-host Prankit.
And in this episode, we discuss basically music only. I think. I mean, the album that we will be discussing is Harmony with Ar Rahman, which was produced by Amazon. And it's like there's an entire series of 5 episodes on Prime. And this is just that album, and this is basically Ar Rahman or Allah Rakha Rahman, or his original name is Dilip Kumar, which is I don't know. I it's a coincidence of having your name to be Dilip Kumar, right? being being in India and with Dilip Kumar being a major actor. But yeah, so basically the core of this this album is that they sort of explore music in different regions of India where it's just all. It's what do I say? Is it like indigenous music, or how would you put it?
It's like folk. I would say, yeah. But I think specifically not just folk music, but I think they really focused on like music that's almost like
dying,
on the border
like
of getting extinct.
Art form is dying.
Yeah, art forms that are like going to go extinct, and they're very rooted in a lot of like history, and it's not your. Because even in folk, you have like the mainstream folk, which is the type of music you do still listen to. And then this is so very much sort of the raw, sort of even like tribal type music, right?
Yeah, there is. And I think also the locations that A.R. Rahman goes to sort of explore this. I thought it was it's sadly all produced, like scripted and produced. But still, someone like A.R. Rahman going to these places to just uncover music was sort of uplifting. I mean, it was good to see that he is so curious about it that he would want to do this, and he would finally like compose it together, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think what A.R. Rahman said was that when he started off in music, I mean, obviously he still has a background, he knows classical music and everything, but he was very much focused on what he said, like the world music, right? It all coming inside that umbrella, so including like Western music and all different types, but he never really, I guess, took the time to take a really deep dive into like traditional Indian music or from different parts of India, that, the folk roots. And I think what this Harmony, this sort of show on Amazon, on this album itself, it's his exploration of that from his lens of like being able to do it. So, I mean, I listened to the tracks first. Like most of my notes and most of my sort of thoughts are from just listening to all of the music, and I only watched the series like yesterday. So, and then I think it was an experience. If I'd watched the series before and then listened to it, maybe my notes would be a bit different because I would have the context of what was going on. But also, I think listening to the tracks first, it kind of gave it that fresh, I have that fresh impression of what I thought of each track. And then now I have the context. So when we're like discussing, I can always sort of go back and forth between, what was shown in the actual show and, what the track came out to be.
Yeah, I think so. Obviously, all the compositions are pre-done. So, firstly, let's just explain it that A.R. Rahman he's a big music composer in India, and he's done music for movies, and his music has also just made the movies more popular than they could have been. And yeah, so he is a composer, and he basically, I think last I remember, he knew 16 instruments, and he makes more because he's more, as he mentions in one of these episodes as well, that I'm more used to the keyboard,
Yeah.
and hence all of, so he plays like instruments like tanpura, he plays these
Yeah, like
beats
he's
and
really
everything,
sort of
everything
had
is
his,
keyboard.
yeah, he's sort of, had his hands in all these different types and styles of music, which is sort of, in his music as well, there's often a lot of different types of instruments in general. Like obviously harmony itself is a bit more experimental than his traditional stuff. But even then, even the movie soundtracks, they tend to have a lot of different types of instruments and different types of music layered. And I guess just one thing to mention as well, like he is very accomplished. He's won 2 like Academy Awards, 2 Grammy Awards, a lot of, even in India, right, countless number of awards. He's done some Western films as well. So he's got a quite a sort of diverse like portfolio or discography.
To mention, I've made, so my notes follow the episodes. So I mean, one of where we will get to, and
Yeah.
basically he says that he played with, or he got a chance to play with Mick Jagger.
Yeah, the Super Heavy album, right? Yeah, the band.
Yeah, so he's that guy.
yeah.
He was as well. Again, Mick Jagger being the icon.
Yeah.
Like Mick Jagger, it's Mick Jagger,
Yeah.
and he was like excited as probably, or maybe lesser than you and I, but you get it, right?
No, yeah, I think when he was talking about it as well, he said like, yeah, he was like, it sort of sounded like for him at one point it did feel a bit intimidating as well, but at the same time, because it's like, it was like Mick Jagger, Joss Stone, like Dave Stewart, like all these people, Damian Marley, and I think that combination, they called it like a super group of people of different music coming together. But yeah, he is experimental, and
it's really good to. I did not know that beforehand. Like I got to know that through the episodes.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, he's. It just felt like he's discovered music in so many avenues,
mm-hmm.
and it's still, it kind of talks to him. I think that's what a good composer is all about.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say similar things for, or maybe different things for Hans Zimmer.
Yeah.
Like he has that feeling though that that it's a big production. If it's music by Ar Rahman, or if it's music by Hans Zimmer, for example, it's a big production.
It's something special, and it's something different and something unique. It doesn't. It's not like it sounds like, okay, that's just a traditional score for a movie. It's very specific to that movie, or if it is composing for a movie, and it's very.
And also might not feel that. So there are some songs in movies of Ar Rahman where I feel I wouldn't have been able to imagine, this instrument or this version of it to be right here, but it sits so well.
Yeah. I mean, that's even in this album, Harmony, right? Overall, like if you think about it, some of this folk music that he's like, Tamil is one of the sort of like the oldest, languages to ever exist. And if you think about some of the music and some of the songs, the folk songs, they have such an old history, right? They don't really have an original sort of author of a song. So these are like sounds from like hundreds and hundreds of years ago. And he's combining those sounds into like more like contemporary or modern like electronic music. But the way he does it, to your point, Razi, it doesn't like stain that music. Like you still have that folk sound, that is still there. And it's just complementing it so well in this like improvisational way. But it doesn't like, it's not like it's taking the original sound and changing it into something else. It's this, I feel like only someone like Ar Rahman could do something like this Harmony album of like, being so careful about how you layer this other like electronic components that it doesn't, take anything away. If anything, it just adds to that folk sound.
Yeah, I would completely agree to what you're saying. And
His music has always been, it's something else. It's always you just kind of know this is A.R. Rahman.
Yeah.
Besides even him singing in a song, it's just music produced by him with the
Hmm.
instruments, the beats, the rhythm. It stands out and just kind of gives his mark. So let's dive into it track by track and
Let's get
see
into
what
it.
things are. Yeah. So we've got no surprises there. We've got the opening title, which is the opening title
The first
of
track.
the episodes, the album, however you want to take it.
Yeah.
So what did you have to say about
Yeah, well, I think
opening title as a
I
song?
listened to this, yeah, because I listened to this, like I said, before I watched the show,
Hmm.
which was yesterday. So I didn't. When I watched the show, I realized it's basically the music for this opening, the actual opening titles of the show, right, where they're building the
Hmm.
set and stuff. But when I listened to it, I just think it just set the scene for the rest of the album. It's got that sort of
Yeah.
ambient sounds of like water running in the background, and there's like
Yeah.
piano blending in with strings, and that music like transitions. It even starts off with like that string sound of like almost like tuning. But so I think it just sets the scene for the rest of the album that it's going to be like a super experimental experience with a lot of sort of ambience and different types of sounds rather than just melody. And I mean, interestingly, they titled it he's titled it Harmony, which by traditionally Indian music, like classical Indian music, is more melody based, and I think
Hmm.
harmony is more of like a Western, like with the choir, and
Hmm.
the concept of having harmonies in a song if someone is singing
Right.
is more of a Western thing, because Indian
Western concept.
traditionally is just melody, just like you have the main sort of melody or tune going. There's not a lot of harmony. So, and I think this opening title sort of puts it in that perspective where there's a lot of different sounds coming together as opposed to just one
True.
core sound, right?
Yeah, I mean that's
Yeah,
exactly what I took away from the song because I think
yeah,
it's very clear in what it's for.
hmm,
As again as we've mentioned, the songs, the soundtracks
yeah,
done by him are
yeah.
very apt to the whatever they're being attached to.
There's a lot
So
of thought that goes
it's like
into it. It's layered at like multiple
yeah,
levels, I'd say.
it is. Well, in you just as it's the piano, then
Yeah,
there's
yeah,
so also since I've seen it, I've sort of made my
yeah.
notes with the perspective of the um the
Show.
show.
Yeah,
It's like it it's just made sense because it's talking about the show talks about these indigenous art forms being
hmm,
still being still living or breathing in
hmm,
these natural habitats where these people are and these artists are,
yeah,
and they're in their natural habitat. And I think that also counts towards him going to the place to be able
yeah,
to understand the music
yeah,
better, I guess. What inspires, something like that.
yeah. Yeah, like the
So
nature, the environment, especially with the folk
yeah,
music, like they pointed out in the show as well, right? It's so influenced by like the nature and the environment they're in. And so, like him going there and being able to sort of record all of this, document
right.
it the way they have, it really puts that folk sound into perspective.
True. I really like since the song like sort of it felt the same to me that it's
Yeah,
entailing what's to come
yeah,
or what you can expect or stuff that you can expect. So it has
yeah,
bits of everything. And
yeah,
there's this one very I think it's a clever bit. It's you hear like this when you breathe or you're checking a flute, so there's
yeah,
this sound which adds to the beat,
yeah,
but it's very minor, but it's there.
Yeah.
So you know that okay, there's a flute
Yeah.
section as well coming up,
Yeah.
and of course there's with all the nature sounds and everything, because
Hmm.
nature is what drives these
Yeah.
musicians to, you
Yeah.
know,
It's what
to
inspires the
whatever they think.
music, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, he says that I think in the first or second one, where he says that let's meet tomorrow and see, how nature inspires us.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
that's
Right. Yeah.
exactly
Yeah.
his
Yeah.
line,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
yeah, it just makes
Yeah,
sense.
I
Yeah,
mean, not just that. Like, if you just, well, I guess we'll get to it. But like, even the title of the next track, right? "Wake Up Jungle." It's a lot of the tracks, like they're just titled, around nature, or they're inspired from
yeah.
nature.
Wake Up Jungle. Yeah. So if you've got something to add about opening title,
No, I think it really is it. I mean, I've got some interesting points to make when we get to like the last track as well, right? The end title, because I think there's some parallels there. But yeah, no, I think it beautifully sets the scene for what's to come.
it does.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we've got the next track, which is Wake Up Jungle,
Hmm.
and yeah, it's a so this being the first track of this series or
Yeah.
album, after the well, you know what I mean, the first track
Yeah.
in the
Yeah. The
sense of
actual
him
first track.
his exploration.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this track, uh, and then seeing the episode and seeing and listening to the music, it takes like 14-15 years for them to learn this,
Hmm.
the art
The
form that he
instrument, you
goes
mean? Yeah. Yeah.
to. It's in Kerala. It's called Kala Mandalam.
Hmm. Yeah. 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 The
The
place.
episode is named Entering the Kalari, I think
Yeah.
Kalari.
Something like that. Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's that sound, and that sound is also they say thalam. They use thalam, which is the word for
Hmm.
rhythm.
Hmm.
So that's what drives these guys, and this instrument and this version is
Yeah.
made for waking up the animals of the jungle. Or that's why it's
Yeah.
called Wake Up Jungle. Because
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
I mean, there's a part of it which mentions, like, it's a call to the forest.
Yeah.
So that kind of thing. And
Yeah, do
yeah,
you remember it was the
it's a
name of
very
the name of the traditional, the folk instrument they're using? It's like something from M. I know they pronounce it. It's not pronounced
it's
how it's spelled.
Miza Vivas.
Sound of Mirava is not new for me.
Yeah, but they pronounce it very differently. In like I
It's
can't
Miza. I mean, they say it very fast.
like
I
like
don't
yeah,
know.
something like that.
Miza
Yeah,
Vivas.
yeah,
Miza
yeah,
Vivas.
yeah.
Something like that. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's called
And
Miza
then I
Vivas,
think
and
the one
I
that
think
A.R. Rahman uses is that in this one is it the harpeggi or something? The harpeggi, I think he calls it. It's that
um,
electronic instrument with like the strings, right?
I mean, he's got instruments where he's like, it's
Some of
sensitive.
them, yeah,
He's
yeah, yeah. No, so
doing
some of
that.
those instruments I actually recognized, like in some of the songs, because I had seen them or known about these like electronic MIDI instruments, which are
Mhm.
just like crazy. But the one that he plays, I had like I've seen it before, but I didn't, and I still like I need to Google it. Like, what is it exactly? Because it's very interesting combination of like the instruments he decides to use for the different like he always has his little MIDI keyboard and stuff for the strings and all of that, but
Yeah,
this one
and his
I was
laptop.
just very fascinated, and his two MacBooks or whatever.
I mean, it's always there. Whenever
Yeah,
he's just going to jam
he
with
should
them, it's
actually
just there.
release like the list of kit that he used for the different episodes. That'll be interesting
The-
to see.
It's a very and
Yeah,
especially
yeah,
he just kind of knowing the sounds
yeah,
that would be coming out of each key
yeah,
when it's not like in a
yeah,
keyboard is like a straight line
yeah.
of blacks and whites,
Hmm.
and you know which one takes out which note, but he,
Yeah,
like, out of a full board, like an art board,
yeah,
he knows,
yeah,
like, this is the key, and just like
Yeah.
just tweaking it. That
It's
it
very
was crazy to
yeah.
watch him do it. I mean,
Yeah.
it was pre-recorded, sure,
But no, even when
it was crazy to
before they do the actual track, right? When they're doing the initial like Jugalbandi sort of exploration, right? The back and forth. I mean, you could tell it's like just on the spot. He's experimenting with the sounds, based on the sounds of like the other instrument.
Actually, those even those sounds are, you know, like kind of, they sound also as well composed as the songs that we listen in the album.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, it's experimental by nature, right? Even the main tracks. But I guess, you know, that's just his intuition of like combining the different sounds and being able to sort of do it on the spot and make it sound so professional.
Right.
Right.
To do it,
like,
on
I'm
the
sure there's
spot
some
is
touch up.
Like, it's like you're hearing this instrument for the first time, and you say, "Okay, that's the instrument. Let me get this out," and then it's just like out with his like full digital board and just doing stuff. And I think in this one, he asks the guy. I think his name is Sajid Vijayan, the player who's in the song, and it's just, you know, he just says, you know, do anything. And he just starts off, and that's when Ar Rahman just sort of, you know, comes in with his digital sound. But again, it's the digital sound that I'm talking about, which you always know that it's a Rahman song. Right?
It's a very unique electronic type feel to it.
Electronic, as well as a few atmospheric sounds. Like the I don't know,
ambience.
A few, I think, to transition and everything, and then the sudden beat changing, but that beat is continuing the same way. I mean, it's very interestingly done if you think about it. Like the beat that the man is playing, he's playing his own rhythm or what he knows, the art form that he knows, and then he just starts off with something, and then he changes the whole perception of the song with a slight change of music. And I think every song in this album, it just kind of, you know, made me feel that music is very you know, you would perceive music in a completely different sense, but the harmony is what, you know, makes it the harmony in this. Like, otherwise the veena playing, or in this one, Miza Vivas. Miza Vivas. It's right here. But Miza Vivas, and they're playing their own instruments, but the feel of that rhythm is changing with what he inputs. The feeling, it could be like an exploratory, it could be inspirational, it could be, you know, nature's call, and I mean, all of them
I guess it
somehow
sort of
related to
puts the
nature.
sound in more context, is what he does with his electronic music. It's like the context around what that sound is. And I think that sort of then can evoke like different types of feelings. Like this feels more, you know, like a more uplifting, or this feels like, you know, it's all that ambience he creates around it.
That's true. Yeah, that's actually quite well said, that he's putting in context to this rhythm that they are just vibing on.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what
like he said,
he also says that.
Like, let's vibe. I'm just gonna vibe on it.
Vibe.
Yeah. It was just like sunglasses.
So, from Wake Up Jungle, we go to Sunset Malcons. Malcons?
Malcons, I think Malcons.
Malcons.
So I think it's pronounced Malcons because it's like a rag. I mean, interestingly, like it's, from what I know, it's more of like a morning meditative rag. It's like full meditation, and you know, you do it early in the morning. But it's interesting because this is obviously sunset,
Sunset, yeah.
not
And they
sunrise.
played at sunset at this
yeah.
spot, right?
Exactly. So I don't know if the sunset part, if it's like, because I didn't look too deep in it, I don't know if it's like a variation like of this Malkorn's rag, which is like for evenings, or is it because of the setting, or is it the way they approached it? But they mentioned like you've got the 5 notes. I mean, that's what Malkorn's is as well. Like it's a rag with just 5 notes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I did not know that actually. So that makes sense for this name. Like just wanted to figure out
Yeah.
why they called what they called
Yeah.
by listening to the music.
Yeah.
Like that's the mission that I was on.
Mhm.
And,
No, well, for me as
now it
well,
makes
right?
sense.
Because before watching the show, the title of the tracks, I didn't have a context for them, right? Like I didn't know they shot this at sunset. So I was just like, maybe it's like a variation, or like I don't. But I mean, when you hear it, I feel like you can almost like picture a sun setting, like the way when the music's been put together. It's like, for me at least, I just visualize a sunset. Because it's also like very transcendent, like there's like a psychedelic element to it, or even like transcendental. Like I think maybe because it's also like a meditative rag for meditation and stuff, but it's got that like very trippy feeling to it when you're just listening.
It does, and
Yeah.
again, even in this, he puts in these sounds
Yeah.
suddenly. Like when you're
Yeah.
listening to it for the first time,
Yeah.
it just the rhythm the harmony has changed now, and now you're seeing a
Yeah.
different visual probably.
Yeah. It's like
If you're just
switching.
listening to
I
the
mean,
song,
at like the 4-minute mark onwards, like there's so much happening. With the different instruments and with the electronic sounds. Yet, like it's not overwhelming. Like you still have that raw sound or feeling to it. But if you
Yeah.
really pay attention, you've got different instruments like on completely different like rhythms, and it's just it's like a masterpiece of things coming together.
Yeah, so to put it in context, in this song, the artist plays the veena,
Mhm.
which a form of veena which is not
Yeah.
now used very
Mhm.
commonly, or
Yeah.
nearly not used.
Yeah.
And his name is Bahuddin Dagar.
Mhm.
However, yeah.
How you pronounce it?
And
Yeah.
yeah, he just so
Yeah.
the A.R. Rahman just comes in with a tanpura,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then I've written like it makes feeling like it's
Yeah.
the mellow feeling is there
Yeah.
with the
Yeah.
starting of the song.
Mhm.
Like it starts out into this,
Yeah.
into this picture, and then there are so many. Uh, you can like probably sometime we can break it down into sections like 2 minutes or 1 minute
Yeah.
when the music changes, when the harmonies
Yeah.
change in the music,
Yeah.
and that would be something.
Like having it separate sections, right, for the different styles almost.
Yeah,
Right.
it's completely, and
Yeah.
it's always had a different feeling attached, like all
Yeah.
of the sounds in one song
Mhm.
itself while the veena is playing, and the veena player is
Yeah.
doing his thing,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's it just you
Mhm.
you hear that sound till the end, and
Yeah.
it just, I don't know, I'm not able to put his songs into too many words, but there were like
It's like
waterfalls of
it's
emotions and
difficult because
feelings when you're listening
yeah.
to it.
No, I mean it's like trying to like not to sound cliche, but it's like trying to describe like color to someone like who can never see, right? It's like it's you have to listen to the track to really experience it, because that's what it is. It's this experience. It's more than just just some notes put together. It's a combination of all these notes and sounds coming together, the sum that's greater than
That's
the parts.
So the guy who learned this art form, his
Yeah.
dad asked him like blunt questions and like promises that you won't
Mhm.
use this for any wrong purpose or wrong.
Oh
or
yeah.
you won't
Not
do
to
it
like
for
impress
wooing anyone
anyone.
else.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not going to
Yeah.
get you fame and money. Do you still want
Yeah.
to do it? And
Yeah.
when he agrees to it, is when I think that's the dedication which would probably lack in in the days to come, in the future. I'm talking about
It's art
like
for
that
it's art for the
dedication.
sake of art, right? It's not like you're not doing it to like get famous or like yeah, and a lot of like the true, if you look at even other fields like stuff like, Vincent van Gogh, like the art that they did, again, it wasn't for any claim or anything. It was art for the sake of art because like you've got to drive in it and you don't care what others think or what they say. It's for your own passion. Like you are the audience for it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the type of art that sort of really transcends, right? Otherwise, if you're like proceeding art from an angle of like entertainment or content creation, I mean, there's that. But sometimes that can sort of stain what the original idea or concept was behind a song or behind
Unless you're
whatever.
someone like Nolan, you're just like nailing it
Yeah.
every time.
Well, I mean, also just like being able to sort of I guess there's two aspects, right? I think one is if you really are pursuing art for the sake of art, it does appeal to other people, even though you're not necessarily going out there for all the exposure. But there is also an art form in balancing art and commercials, and doing it in a way which is still like makes business sense, I guess. But it is still art. It's not, it's not
I mean,
completely
yeah.
produced or
Well,
commercialized.
philosophically speaking, you
Yeah.
have to be part of the society, and you
Yeah.
can't be
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
just one track about it.
Yeah. But these guys are like completely like, this guy, for example, for him, it's like,
just
it's
like
his musical
in
art
it.
form.
I
He's
mean,
just,
that's it.
yeah. Yeah.
That's
And
his
now he
life.
is sort
And
of getting recognition
same
for it.
was for the
So,
one before, because they
yeah.
have this entire school set up, and
Yeah.
people who are there, they are there for I
Well,
think
an interesting
14,
point
15
was,
years.
yeah, the interesting point, because in this one, right, the guy says like in the show, right, like as an artist or a musician, you can't be too religious. Like you need to have that sort of liberal mindset. And if you kind of
Yes.
notice it in the first episode, the track with the Wake Up Jungle, although like the instrument is traditionally used in a temple, and the guy is sort of religious, like they do use it in ceremonies. They do mention, right, like his guru or his mentor was the one who took the instrument. He was the one who rebelled in a way, who took the instrument out of the temple and exposed it to other people and like made it into an instrument that people can learn. And that is that liberal mindset, right? Of like, everyone
Right.
should have access to it. It's not like just, even though it's like liberal in their own like respective way, in their own relative way.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and I think I would completely agree with that. To be able to accept all music, you
Yeah.
need to have a really open mind.
Yeah.
All forms of
I mean,
music,
any
or
art,
all
any
art
art,
forms.
I would
Yeah.
say, yeah. Yeah. You need to be open to it. Otherwise, it's just wouldn't make sense to you.
Open to it in the sense that it exists and you're okay
Yeah.
with it,
Yeah.
and maybe appreciate it or
Yeah.
just let it be. That
Yeah.
just that is the liberal part that I think
Yeah.
he also
Yeah.
wants to point out. And yeah, and Rahman plays the fingerboard in this fingerboard hacking. Fingerboard
Yeah.
hacking
Yeah.
continuum.
Yeah. The slide thing. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, the sound of this like fingerboard, like the sound effect that he uses, it complements the Veena so
He's
well.
literally just
Like it goes so well together, right? And he's just like messing about with it.
He is vibing. He's been doing it for like he had
vibing.
the
He's vibing.
fingerboard hacking continuum for like 10 years, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
just to sort of be at par with
Yeah.
the Veena player, he just says,
Yeah.
and I'm
Yeah.
still learning. because that's what he said, that I
Yeah.
still learn, and
Yeah. Yeah.
there are
Yeah.
those, he does shows. The
Hmm.
Veena player does shows, so it's not like a very
Yeah.
conserved art form, or that he's wanting to get money out of it, but
Yeah.
he respects it so much,
Yeah.
right? That's the main giveaway from this. Like,
Yeah.
not to sort
Hmm.
of sell it out, but just have that much
Hmm.
respect that you will dedicate so many weeks,
Yeah.
months, years to it, and just be at it. And he in the same way, he hasn't taught his
Yeah.
daughter, who sits and listens to him,
It's
but
a lifelong pursuit.
she
Yeah.
hasn't asked him, and that's what he's saying. Like, I don't want to tell her to do it.
Yeah.
If she wants to, she will tell me to do it, or
Yeah.
teach her.
Hmm.
Yeah. So after Sunset Malkos, the artist, or the one of
Hmm.
the living artists of that Veena,
Hmm.
is from Mumbai. Like, the last one was from Kerala. This was from
Hmm.
Mumbai. The next one, he goes to Manipur, which is the northeastern India,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
the episode is called "Listening to Nature." The song is called "Floating Circles," by
Yeah.
Lorraine Bum Bedpati ji.
오 tumbushana 오 비자게 오 tumbushana.
And there's a funny thing
Hmm.
about the episode. So there's a very, I don't know, it's an erratic shot. I don't know why the shot would be there.
You're talking about the one where he goes to the shop, right?
So basically, how would
To
you
ask.
think A.R.
Yeah.
Rahman has
Yeah.
gone to Manipur, and he's just driving about, and he's
Yeah.
asking
No,
people.
I think it's because I think it's just to make it organic and like make it look like, oh, he's like exploring the. I mean, it is a scripted part,
I guess.
but I think for the average viewer, it's like engages them, right? Like, oh, he's asking the guy where it is, and because she even asks him, right, how did you find my house?
That's
And he's like, magic.
scripted. I mean, that's scripted.
Yeah, but that's my point. It's like it's obviously like they have some translator and everything, right? That they cut out because he just talks in English and they
And she
answer in their own languages. But I think it's produced in a way for it to not be like, for it not to be jarring. That like, oh, they've got a translator translating or whatever. They scripted it out
But
a little bit around, I guess, what their
I think
actual interaction was.
She does speak English, or maybe just broken English.
I mean, a lot of these people probably at least understand it,
Yeah.
right? Even if they're not replying in English, they might understand what they're saying. But I'm sure they still had a translator.
Yeah,
Right.
because
Also A.R. Rahman's vocabulary isn't just like he does use some complicated words sometimes
so
when,
I got
when he's
to know
talking in English.
from my
Yeah.
brother Heather, that
Yeah,
A.R. Rahman is really camera shy because he's like a big time introvert, and
yeah,
that none of what he says on screen, like basically when the camera is action,
yeah,
he just
yeah,
shuts off. He doesn't know what to do unless you actually tell him what to
yeah,
do.
yeah,
So
yeah,
given that, I think nearly a lot of it was
yeah,
just sort of
yeah,
told to him, or the whole the
yeah,
series is made in an indie kind of perspective, but it's produced by Amazon, so it
yeah.
can't be.
No, it is produced. Yeah, I think it's very much he's at least the gauge that I got was that he's got a idea or an angle, right? Like he wants to know some specific things about an instrument or some specific things about this art form. But the way they go about it is a bit scripted, like the way he's asking things and like the way you get the responses and all of that.
Yeah.
But I do think at the core of it, it's him who's driving it. Like it's not like they're telling him, oh, now you ask about the history. It's like, oh, actually, I want to know, why this, or I want to know why that. And then, they put it together in that way.
That's true. And it just didn't make sense in the episode, at least, that he's talking.
Oh,
he's
that
talking
shop.
to her
Yeah.
and she's responding. Obviously, it's very clear you
Yeah.
don't understand. Like,
Oh, okay.
well, A.R. Rahman doesn't understand
Yeah.
Manipuri.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
okay, let's just go with what they show.
I think it's just to keep it simple. Yeah, it was just to keep it simple. It's like she'll just respond in a language and you got the subtitles. But he's just
but
they didn't really have that translator.
So with
aspect
floating circles,
in it.
he's in Manipur there to explore the art form called Kunung Ishai.
Mhm.
Kunung Ishai is the
Yeah,
is
and
the
she, yeah,
I don't know. It's a very even he tries to do it in the show
yeah.
where he's just
Yeah.
like hitting himself over here. So see,
This
I'm
throat,
close
yeah,
enough.
to make the voice.
But
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's interesting talking about because what you were saying earlier, the whole thing about nature, right? I mean, even considering where she is and the way like she sings, it very much is almost like inspired or the way it feels like it's evolved from how like birds sing,
yeah,
right? Like it's like how birds sing and communicate. It very much is like a human version of that. And again, you have like nature inspiring, the environment is inspiring that art
so
form.
so she mentions that this art form of this she started singing in
Yeah.
this manner where kind of naturally because she used to call out to people and she was always told by I think her family that don't go on this route and she did.
Yeah, they didn't want her to do
But then
music. Yeah.
she mentions that I used to practice just by calling out to people through, they are in this sort of
Yeah.
village area where it's like forest around.
Yeah. So,
So she's just calling
Yeah,
out and
yeah.
she's calling out to other people, like the neighbors or somewhere.
yeah, she's like
Yeah,
talking.
but she's
yeah,
talking in that
but singing.
pitch and in that
Singing
singing.
for- Yeah.
art
So
form.
if I remember correctly, I think it was because they traditionally in that area or village or whatever you want to call it, like while they
Yeah.
farm and they do all the farm work, people sing to each other rather than talk.
Mhm.
I guess it's just like a form to like keep, and I think that is what she was driving at, right? Like that art form. But like the way she used to practice was just like sing to neighbors or sing to the
Yeah.
birds or sing to like. It's just like for her, it's like talking because like she's talking to Ar Rahman and then she just starts singing and then she starts talking again because for her it's like that's how she communicates, which I thought was again like how birds communicate.
That's true. And it's kind of just even this is like she's calling out to or speaking to nature because what she sings about is very poetic ways of how you would
Yeah.
see nature in front of you, and she sings
Mhm.
about that. Like, look
Yeah.
at the mountains, look at the
Yeah.
sun burning the mountains and the clouds in the sky, and it's so beautiful. And,
Yeah.
stuff like that. That's what she's singing about, and
Mhm.
so basically, she's just singing about nature, which is beautiful, and
Yeah.
I don't know if the language is that poetic.
Well, the thing is, like in this track, the floating circle, like when they play this track, I don't think this had subtitles, right? When she's
No.
singing this track. Yeah, so I don't know what she's singing in this one. I kind of really wish they did have subtitles. But
She's
it's
singing
still- again,
something about Manipur because the beauty of it. Because there's once
Yeah.
that she mentions Manipur, which is
Yeah,
the ending note,
yeah,
and then the Manipur, and then the U is extended along.
yeah.
And,
Yeah, but the music, like there's this because it's again very much this track is driven by her singing, right? That's what the core of the track is, and his music, A.R. Rahman's music, is sort of around
Mhm.
whatever she's singing. But there's like just like before the 2-minute mark, like the 1 minute 56 seconds or whatever, like it transitions into like the electronic music like overlaid her singing and then like it then continues again and it's just I don't know, it's like the way it's put together is just mind-blowing. Again at the 3-minute 30-second mark it comes back, there's like this background electronic music like coming and going while she continues singing as she's singing. It just complements it so well and it's so like feels very experimental at the same time, like it's improvisational, like
even Rahman like using the ATV frame is what it's called, and just because in every episode they first vibe and then they jam.
His first vibe, yeah.
So that vibing is with that ATV frame, and I don't know how, just kind of knowing that it'll sound good, or I'll make it sound good. You sing, I'll make it sound good.
Yeah.
And
It's just for him. I think for like music is like a language for Ar Rahman.
yeah,
Like, he just knows, right? He can. It's not like he needs to think too hard or like be like, oh, what am I gonna do? Like he can just vibe
yeah,
and do something around it because he just lives and breathes music.
yeah. He he makes instruments
Yeah.
for himself,
Yeah.
and not for like production. Like
Yeah.
he makes it for himself so that music is easier to him.
Yeah, he's got a passion around it. Anything to do with producing sound, music, any weird type of instrument. Like, he's the type of guy I feel like if he's walking around somewhere and he sees some instrument he hasn't seen, he's going to go and want to play it or at least try it and figure out how to make sound from it.
Yeah, true. But yeah, I mean, where he's a music genius. There's no question.
Yeah. And then also one sort of, I guess, last thing about this track, the title, A Floating Circle. So before seeing, obviously in the show, in the video, there are these like circles you can see in the water, right? These patches of grass or whatever.
Okay.
In the background. So it's in the water. And I guess that might be some of the reference, like floating circles, because they look like circles floating in the water.
But why is, again, we don't have the transcript for the song.
So, not the song. I'm just talking about like visually, right? In the TV show, in the episode, in the music video for floating circles, there are these circles in the water that look like they're floating.
But why do you think it's floating circles? Why is it called floating circles? Do you have any?
So it could be, that's what I'm saying. So it could be that in the video they've got the water. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I will have to rewatch it. But yeah, okay. I remember these scenes coming up while she's singing.
Yeah, so where they stage, like behind them, is like a lake. Or it's not even a lake. It's just it rained hard, and so there's water there or something. And you can see these circles, these patches of grass circles. They're like crop circles almost. And that could be why it's called floating circles. Is because before listening to the track, I was in my head. I was trying to picture like, while she's singing, what is happening? Like, what is the reason for it to get called floating circles? And the only thing I could imagine is, like when you dance, like similar to like dandiya or like certain dance forms where you like form circles, right? And you like dance in circles. So I thought maybe like in this type of music, like maybe that's how you dance because it sounds like that.
Because
but in the video, obviously, there's no dancing.
The music is quite tribal, right?
Yeah.
Like this one specifically is very tribal.
Well, it's So, but in the video, you've got the background. So I feel like they might have named it based on the visuals. Or it could be that that's what she's singing about. Because, when she's singing about the mountains, she's standing there, there's like hilltops. And then she talks about the hill and the fire burning.
Okay, so if that's behind her, then she could be just looking at it. And
maybe she was singing about the floating circles because we don't have the transcript or the subtitles for this. Right.
And...
but yeah, watch the video. You'll see what I mean.
When I'll just watch that again.
Yeah.
It would make sense then, I guess. I would like to find the transcript somehow. I do have someone who can translate from Manipuri. But let's see if I can get that up. So the next,
excellent,
after floating circles, we've got Rainmaker, which is so the artist is Mikma Shering Lepcha. The episode is called Achule. We are all one. I don't know if Achule is like, so Rahman is now gone to Sikkim, and this Lepcha is part of this tribe, Lepcha tribe, and they have this art form, and he's sort of mastered it. And he also has this like small band that they play inside.
The Lepcha band. Yes. They got like a proper uniform and everything, right? When he wears it.
that was actually quite cool that there's a tribe, because this is definitely from a tribe, and a tribe has this setup inside,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
and the Lepcha tribe.
I mean, he speaks really good English, though. This guy,
In
right?
so in the
he's-
Northeast, it's quite, as I mentioned, even
Yeah.
with Bedpati ji. So in Northeast, English is quite prominent. Like learning
Yeah.
English in school, basically,
Yeah.
is quite common.
Yeah.
So I guess
Yeah.
that's the reason. There's one thing that I have noted,
Yeah.
which
But he was like very confident the way
sorry?
he spoke and everything. I was like, like he was really confident in everything. The way he was collaborating with someone from Switzerland as well, right? Prior to that, he spoke
I
about
think so. Yeah.
some artist from Switzerland. So he's like putting himself out there.
And there's one thing I noted down, which sort of which bridged my fandom, which is the Lepcha tribe, which he mentions were hunters and gatherers.
They were hunters.
Generations of hunters and gatherers.
Dialogue just stood out, and I've written that down.
Yeah.
And Mund is the melody, which is the melody that he's playing, and pathong is the instrument.
Yeah, Pando.
But
I
the names
don't want to try pronouncing it, but yeah. Yeah. And I was surprised, like one of the flutes that he had or whatever, it was like, what he said, 60 years old or something. I was like, damn, like that thing must need a lot of maintenance.
The flute, yeah. And you get, as he mentions, as Rahman mentions, because flute is like a common thing over there because there's a lot of bamboos, and hence you can make a lot of flutes. And this is there's one word that he mentions. It's firstly, this melody is for a shaman ceremony, and this is also the episode where Rahman says that he's played with Mick Jagger in a band called Super Heavy. Was that the band?
I think so. Yeah. Or was that the name of the album? I can't remember. Super Heavy, I think. Yeah.
So there's one word that he uses pentatonic, which basically Mick uses the word
Pentatonic Scale
for the sound he's producing, and then so
a pentatonic scale is basically a scale with 5 notes. So like so like the traditional is like septatonic scale, like heptatonic scale, pentatonic scales. It's because I think it's only got like 4 holes or whatever on the flute, so you can only play with like 5 notes.
I think he describes the notes also later on in the next song. Do you have anything to add about the song? The song from the song perspective.
I mean, the song itself is just No, the Rainmaker, like I think by itself it's again very interesting track. Like again, because it's the base of it is just that sound of the flute, or however you call it, that instrument. Like I think again it gives Ar Rahman like a lot of flexibility around. Like if you forward it to like the 3-minute 25-second mark or whatever of the song, there's again so much happening with like different melodies playing on different instruments, and they're all like complementing each other around this flute sound. He's also got some beats, right, that kick in. So again, it gives him a lot to play around with that flute sound. And it's interesting because like, if you go back to something like Floating Circles, there you have just the vocals that really were the lead, and his music was very subtle. Like whatever Ar Rahman was doing was very subtle. While here it's much more evident and much more like explicit, like the music he's putting in and the way it's sort of combining. Yeah, I've got it. That's the one, right? On my screen.
That's the, playing the panthong.
Yeah. And he's playing that, what do you call it? I forget the name of the instrument that Ar Rahman is playing.
Seaboard. Do
you have it written down? Yeah, so this is the one. So I've had my eye on it for a while. This instrument, it's by called Rolly. It's called like Rolly Seaboard. And man, like you can get different size ones, like small ones. There was a period where I was like really considering purchasing it, like a while back. But these are like quite expensive. So one day maybe. But it's a really interesting piece of kit. Yeah. Like you can do a lot of like dimensional music, you know, like the way
Dude,
it is. I mean, I guess
it's
a lot
like
of these instruments
it's
that
like
he's
before you
using.
buy it, do you promise to not use it for any wrongdoings? Only then can you have that
Right.
permission.
If you'll give me a discount, then yeah, okay, yeah,
Yeah. Then we've got
Yeah.
this series of Man Moj Mein, or Heart is an Ecstasy,
yes,
and
yeah,
it's just I mean, so so as we've heard as yet, the songs were sort of impromptu
Yeah.
compositions, which were led
Yeah.
by the players, and
Mhm.
then this is the section of songs, which is part A, part B, C1, C2, C3, C4,
yeah,
is all Rahman's
Yeah.
composition. Like he's sort of,
yeah,
put that A plus B plus C plus Rahman.
yeah. Yeah, it's divided it up into these like musical
Yeah.
sections, and well, that's what because again, I listened to this before watching the series, and I was like, firstly, like, okay, why are there so many tracks called the same name but like different, A, B, C1, C2, C3, and I kind of guessed that it's probably one big track, but for some reason it's been like chopped up into these parts, but I still didn't have much context around like. When watching the show, it made much more sense. So it's everyone coming together, firstly, right? All these different artists we'd been seeing. And I didn't know that was going to happen. So I was quite surprised and excited when that was happening, seeing all of them together in a room, like trying to figure stuff out. And then I guess, when he's talking to them, like about the composition, he's already, right, he says, okay, so in part A, everyone, we're going to have everyone solos, and then part B is going to be focused. So in his head, or I think he calls it part 2 or whatever, he's already broken it down. And I think that's how it's been presented on the album rather than one long track. Because, they do have, even though it's in the episode, it's one long track that they perform, these sections themselves do have endings and beginnings. It's not like it abruptly finishes.
It sort of soothes into the next song and then
starts
starts off. And some so
like it is.
for example,
Yeah.
I think like this.
Well, should we go track by track with this?
I think
like
so,
part A, part B, part C.
Let's do it
right?
as Rahman
There's like
does
6
it.
parts. Yeah. Yeah.
So we've
Yeah.
got Man Moj Mein part A. And so firstly, I was really, I don't know, I was happy to read the episode name to be called Heart is an Ecstasy. Because it just fits. I mean, this is it. This felt good. And then we've got, then in the episode, he asks basically what notes are they playing, each one of them, and someone C, someone E, someone C major, etc.
What scale their instruments at and all of that, right?
And
the one with the flute is like, I can do E minor or C sharp.
I've got 2 floats.
I can see in his head like Ar Rahman is like struggling because like she sings in C and then he's like, do E minor. I was like, okay.
And then we've got part A, which is I think
sorry, I just wanted to add, because it shows he doesn't also want to post-process it to the point where because you could easily record it in like, as long as it's a major scale or a minor scale, you can then transpose it, right? So you can make C sharp C in post-production, which often, is the case. But it shows that he didn't want to do that with this, right? He didn't want to change the sound of the instrument in like the post-production. He wanted to keep that raw sound on, because it was a strange question, because you could easily just bring it down. It's only half a note higher than what she's singing. But then he was like, no, play it in E minor, because that would
I guess
correspond with C.
As he tells everyone before they begin, just be happy, sing about happiness, and sing about just keep singing about or playing with happiness in mind, or ecstasy in mind, or just music in mind. Yeah. And that's all that they sing, and especially as well, we go track by track. So part A, there's flute and there's light singing, and of course with the digital compositions in it. and then
Yeah.
it's accompanied by music. So I think part A sort of again introduces you to what's coming.
It is. It's so. This is. I find it. I find some parallels to the opening title as well. Because again, this one has the audio of the sound, the audio of the oceans. Right. It's got that water flowing background. Again, similar to the opening title. Right. So it brings that back, and then the way the instruments are played, like even the the percussive ones. It's like they do this thing. I don't know what that musical style is called, but it's like, there's like a long sound followed by like some small sounds, like tap, 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 tap. Like, and it sort of tails off, and then he does it again and it tails off. And they do it with a lot of different instruments. So again, it's like really setting the scene, and it's like something is about to start, but it's not it hasn't started yet. It's like sound check, right?
It's sound check.
It's sort of like a sound check. Everyone like plays a little bit of their thing. Everyone is like trying to make sure it's all working. Yeah,
it is sound check. I think part A is sound check for what's to come.
Yeah,
and part B. So part B kind of starts right at the note where part A ends, like the scale.
Yeah.
Basically.
But it still feels like part A ends and then part B begins. But at the same time, it does flow.
Basically, part A ends. So where part A ends, where it leaves you, is where part B takes you forward. Is
Yeah.
So so part B. I think it's just joyous music. Basically, just be happy and everyone's singing happily.
Yeah.
And Bedbadi ji, this has those subtitles coming up. So she has that, she sings about, happiness, just happiness. Oh, can I be so happy?
Mm-hmm.
That's what the lyrics are of what she's singing.
Yeah.
So it's basically like she's and he's not asked her to sing specific things, but like what she sort of feels like singing.
Yeah. It's in her heart. Yeah. And I think the other thing is like in this part B, right? Especially like the beginning and like the first half, you've got the vocals of her singing, and you've just got the piano playing. It's very subtle. Again, it's not similar to what her Floating Circle song was. Like, she's still leading it. But it works so well, and it's such a strange combination. Because usually it's like, how you'd hear a piano in like an Adele song or something, where it's just like vocals, strong vocals, and just a piano playing. But instead of a westernized vocal, it's actually that folk style that she's singing. And it's like backed up with the piano, and it just works so well. Like, you can just imagine a live version where it's just her and a piano. You don't need anything else. It's just these two things. The whole song could just be that. But then obviously the cello and the violin sort of kicks in, and you get this like
orchestra
chorus. I think it's like the 3-minute mark. Yeah. And at the 3-minute mark, right, the chorus kicks in with the harmonies, and it's like this strange integration of like Western and music with her folk style. It's just so weird.
It's just like it's so smooth. Basically, you're right through it. It's really smooth, and and it's
it transitions quite beautifully throughout.
Basically, and what she's singing about is also nature and the beautiful nature, and again mentions the beauty of Manipur. And I've been to Manipur, and I guess people over there, or such artists, like, you can drive your inspiration from that place. It's got, I mean, it's strange city. Strange in the sense that it's not. Did
you have to ask the guy at the shop where to go?
and he knew where she lives. But it's strange city in the sense that this it's not a very regular township that you would say, that a regular cycle of or regular flow of events that you'd see in a normal city. because it's not like it's
Mhm.
not a mountainous city or like
Yeah.
a beach or something. It's a landlocked
Yeah.
city, and but
Mhm.
it's got good nature around it. Is
Yeah.
and is what we see, and what also inspires Vedpati ji's music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, it just works. Like, even in the Floating Circles track, right? The visuals of that whole area and her vocals just go so well.
I think
Yeah.
that part was really well thought of. That let's do it in their environments first, and then
Yeah,
let's get them to
yeah.
the studio. And I mean that's
Yeah, it's just so
Yeah.
well thought out in that sense, because I didn't know that they're going to come to the studio as well, right? When I was just watching the episode, like, oh, so he's actually doing it like at the play. He's not like taking them
Yeah.
to a studio. They're just outdoors. They're just vibing,
exactly.
basically. Yeah.
Then we go from part B to C1. And this is basically the guy from Sikkim. He's what was his name again? Mikma.
Flute guy.
Lepcha. The Lepcha tribe.
The Lepcha. Yeah, yeah.
And he's just
So he sort of sings, doesn't he? Like in this
and
one.
it's a very
Yeah.
common, sort of, because Sikkim is mountainous. So that melody
Yeah.
that he sings is what along the lines of that. I've heard that before in the mountains. So
That style
that
of
style
singing
exists. And
Yeah.
then of course it felt a little like Pocahontas. It makes sense.
Well, like the music, I was gonna say in this sort of part C1, again, this is like before I'd seen the episode and like I had the context of the different artists performing in the different tracks. To me, this almost felt like a musical interlude between part B and part C2. Because part C2 has a lot happening, part B had a lot happening, but part C1 it's kind of more Western sounding as well. So for me, it was like a bridge between part B and then taking it to part C2, like connecting the two tracks.
I mean, the next song, which is C2, is just
Yeah.
well, that I've got like there's so much. There is
You just get lost in the track.
exactly. It's this is no surprises my favorite song of the album. And
Yeah, like everything just
There's-
kicks in. Everything
so,
is dialed to
as
11.
many words as I could think is it's classical, it's danceable, it's enjoyable, it's a build up, it culminates, and it basically makes a full circle. And
Yeah. Yeah.
this I think when he starts with part A, he sort of is
Yeah.
bringing to this peak point, and then after C2, C3, C4 is where it's culminating to the end title. Right?
Yeah.
I think because this is everything's there. You've got everything.
Yeah, I mean, this is like basically C2. I think is like this is Ar Rahman being Ar Rahman. Like he's bringing in all the different like musical expertise to create this track. This is like the most, this part C2. I would say out of the whole album, this is probably the most like fully formed track.
Yeah.
Like whilst the other ones are more experimental and improvisational in nature, even this one is like that. But it's still, I guess, compared to them, this one is kind of like, this is the one he planned it out. Remember, he says in the video, I'm going to be up all night. This is what he was doing. He was like, all right, he's got to come in from there. This is going to happen. Right, all right, I'm going to put my glasses on. I'm going to start singing at this point. Right, and it's got this like grand, like cinematic feeling to it, right? You have like the bass drop and like, you have like, I don't know if it was like Shehnai, right? And then the percussive instruments like going
And
back
then
and
there's
forth,
the
back and
choir
forth.
as well.
So it's like him just bringing in everything. Yeah.
I mean, he adds the choir
Like,
in it. He
just-
adds
this is like-
I can't even name
Yeah.
the instruments that that are there visually as well as.
And it takes you through a journey. The song itself is like, it's got its own sections, like, part C 2.1. And in different sections, you've got different music, different styles of instruments, different music. So the ending of this song is more electronic, like you've got more electronic sounds, but it goes from this whole journey. And I think this is just him just like going all out. Right.
That's true. And I don't know, this song always makes you feel good, like your heart is actually in ecstasy. When the choir sings Man Mauj Mein, and then he adds in with his
it really evokes that feeling. Yeah.
And
exactly.
It's just, I mean, it's crazy the way he I don't know.
His voice works so well as well, like because it's got a very piercing voice, right?
He knows what to do with it.
Almost like Sufi-like.
He knows exactly what to do with it and at what point.
Yeah.
Basically, he was vibing well. He just vibed very well.
Mm-hmm.
And so C2 is a lot more. I don't know. I mean, I think we should break down C2, as you said, 2.1 to 2.2, and discuss that next on. Probably in one of the recollecting notes. And then C2 moves to C3, which is I think mainly the orchestra in full power.
Yeah, I think C3 is like, I think C2 sort of, it feels like the peak, but I think C3 is where the actual peak is because it's more fast paced. Like everything just picks up, it starts off just where C2 ends. Everything picks up pace and it really feels like that climax, right? Like everything's just coming to, like everything came together in C2 and C3 is that last extra bit of just like.
That's a good way to
and it's like when bands are performing live. Sometimes they'll do the song and then after the song they'll do this like little bit of extra music, which is like, they'll bring up the tempo and it's not part of the original track, but they'll do it anyway because people live are engaging and clapping. And it kind of feels like that. It's like, that's where the song ends, but actually, no, they just like pull it through here where they just, it's even more on like steroids, what C2 was.
Yeah, this begins where C2 ends, as you said. And you put it very well that C2 is the climax and this is C2 would be
the C2 was like the peak, but this is the climax of that peak.
And then we've got the end of Man Mauj Mein, C4.
It's C4. Yeah. And C4, I think it goes back, it pulls it back because C4 starts off again, it's a bit more classical sounding because like, C2 and C3, then you got everything, right? So, but then C4, it kind of pulls it back down into like the more classical sound. But then again, when like she's singing and you've got like the piano, like the chords playing and the music that Ar Rahman is doing, it's very interesting because the chords he's playing, they're like your Western chord progressions, like the 4 or 5 chords you expect in like a Westernized song. But she's singing something else, so they don't fit completely, but they complement each other, right? Like the chords he's playing are not necessarily the correct chords.
Complement your art form.
Yeah, but music, like the chords he's playing on it, it's not like it's the correct chords for what she's singing. Like if he had to play, it would be something else to like. But it's slightly different. It's like a Western version of those.
It is Western. I mean,
but again, it works.
That's what he adds to these.
It works.
These tribal sounds, these really old classical sounds. That's what he added to these. All of these tracks is the Western perception of. Just thought in a Western.
Well, he calls it like the world music, right? Yeah. So there's all types of like things happening. But like I just found it so unique. Like she's singing and like the chords he's playing are not fitting with what she's singing exactly. but they work, and they again give it this like strange,
Yeah.
like this strange feeling. Again, you can't really get it from any other type of music,
That's true. That's true.
right?
Yeah, there's one thing that I would say before we move to the end title. That
Mhm.
firstly, it's weird to talk about songs as which have names as A, B, C1, C2, C3, C4,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
referring to them like, C2 doing this, C3 doing this. But then
Mhm.
again,
yeah,
if we're discussing music, and we're discussing music
yeah,
purely right now. It doesn't even have a
Mhm.
name. It's that
Yeah.
pure.
yeah,
It just stood out to me that this. Like,
Essentially.
I'm just reading names at part A, part B. So what is it about?
Yeah,
Is what you will only uncover when you listen to it, and
yeah. Listen
it's
to it.
definitely these A to C4 is definitely once you've got to listen to it. Because if you appreciate music, you've just got everything there to love, right?
Mhm.
And
Yeah,
we've got the end title, which is
yeah.
the end title.
Yeah, so I mean, it's interesting because I think I said it in the beginning when I've been talking about the opening title. Like the end title, it's very similar. Like they, start off almost the same. Around like the 30-second mark. I think in the opening title, right, you get the beats and it's like the same type of beat that you get in this track, but it's missing just one of the bass like sounds. And then the next transition, like the opening title, just goes in a different direction,
Right.
while this just goes to a different, like, so the first half, like the first 45 seconds of both the tracks are almost identical, and then they both just transition into like these different parts. So I just thought it was like an interesting
It's just,
a way to like
I mean,
tie
it's
it up,
like full circle. And that's the
Yeah.
feeling you get when you listen to end title. It's like, okay, so this is
Yeah.
getting everything. So before, I think opening title had
It takes you back where it started, but
so
then
it's like opening title
it then
had
takes you in a
a
slightly
trailer
different
of what's
direction.
to come, and this is
Yeah,
everything that you've heard is
like a summary.
done, and
Yeah,
it's now ending. So like
Yeah.
you get the feeling of it
yeah,
being ending, or like this being the ending.
yeah,
That's for sure. And this, I mean, it's this album was even I had no idea what we're just gonna. There's nothing
Yeah.
really that I understand completely or that I'm so well versed with that
Yeah.
should I comment on
Yeah.
it, or should I which part should I discuss? Because
Mhm.
again, as we discussed that, the perceptions change with the harmonizing
Yeah.
of the instruments, and
Yeah. yeah.
it was just confusing. But yeah, I think we we covered it well in a. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to like dissect here, right? And I think having that that Amazon Prime show, it also helps put a lot of these tracks into
Yeah.
context. I almost feel like, if you're someone who's heard this album or you enjoy this type of music, you should go and watch the show, just because it gives it so much more like context,
True.
like puts the music right from where the environment is, or like where the music is created, where the instruments come from. Right, the history behind it, to like the why of it all.
The why is answered.
It
with
really
the
answers it. So I
episode.
think,
The why is definitely answered. And
yeah,
why, how, where,
yeah.
everything's answered. Yeah.
It really is an appreciation of like folk and classical music, like music, especially that's like close to almost going extinct. Right, this is like really appreciating it, and I think in a way, this album has like immortalized some of those instruments and musical art forms.
Yeah.
It's just done so well.
The
that I
music
think
just
it's
makes
just-
it, as we mentioned, well, not saying it's the same, but well, it's westernized. It's also given this futuristic feel to it. right?
Yeah. I mean, it's difficult, right? Because it's not like westernized in the sense of like, oh, this is Western music, let's fuse it. I think for A.R. Rahman, it's just world music. It's music from all around the world, and he's put like aspects. There's like a choir and violin and cello, but there's also other instruments. Like when he uses the fingerboard, that's not a Western sounding instrument, right? The sound effect that he uses. So it's such an interesting combination of sounds.
Yeah.
Done in
Definitely.
such a way, right?
It's and it's
Yeah.
really enjoyable if you just this is what like always trips me over, that this music
Yeah.
or even otherwise say Floyd
Yeah.
or Hans Zimmer, their
Mhm.
music, including A.R. Rahman, it was just a thought. Right?
Yeah.
He thought of this. This was in his mind, and
Yeah.
it's crazy imagination.
Yeah. Like to come up with that type of thing. Yeah.
And it's always
it's amazing.
for me. It
Yeah.
just gets more and more overwhelming. The more I
Yeah.
think about it, that this was, or maybe like as he says, they were vibing. If they were vibing, they're vibing
Yeah.
really hard,
Yeah.
and really good. And it's
Exactly.
these sort of nuances is what
Yeah.
these questions actually what
Mhm.
make it more interesting for me. Any music that
Yeah.
this was just, and this doesn't even have lyrics to them.
Yeah, and he sort of touches upon it in that episode, the Floating Circles one, where he says it's music, and I think this talks to this album
Mhm.
as a whole, is its own language,
Mhm.
right? Just through the rhythm and the sound of it, you can sort of understand
What it's trying to
what the
say,
music is saying. That's why, like, right, you don't necessarily
True.
need to understand what they're singing or what it is, and it really sort of shows, you go through the different types of like emotions and feelings just using
Yeah.
sound. And that's why, like, when you're listening to something like Floating Circles, where you don't understand what she's singing, it makes it even beautiful because you're really listening to the voice like an instrument.
Exactly.
You're not trying to pay
Yeah.
attention to the words. You're not getting lost in like what the meaning of the words are, but you're just paying attention to the sound that's coming out of her, right?
I'm gonna, we will.
I mean, we'll
be
talk, like,
also
to
discovering
me,
more
like,
of these music, which is just music, pure music.
Yeah, well, I was just gonna say like Sigur Rós is the closest one I could think of, where it's like when we listen, we're not necessarily understanding what he's saying. It's just sounds.
Because he's not saying
And
anything. Because
you use those sounds. Yeah, it's a made up sort of. But yeah, I mean, we'll do an episode, I guess, on one of their albums as well. But it's just I got that type of vibe,
Uh-huh.
so to speak, from this as well, where it's like you're just analyzing the sounds, and it really is beautiful.
that's true. That's that brings us to the end of the episode, and yeah, this was. Again, I would recommend this album to anyone who loves any kind of music, and you will just, well, if not all, you love at least one song of it, because it's got a combination of everything, and the heart.
Yeah, and I would highly recommend watching the show
My
as
heart
well.
is an ecstasy, as the album says.
Yeah, exactly.
And okay, so thank you for tuning in, and we will see you next time with a different. And I don't know. I don't know. Is it going to be
Different
Christmas?
type of music. We'll find out. We'll find out in the next episode.
It's going to
yeah.
be Christmas soon, guys. So just watch out.
Yeah.
Cheers.
We'll see.